The snow fell like sifted ash over the endless pines, muting the world to a brittle hush. In the heart of that quiet, a cabin crouched low against the cold, its chimney trailing a pale ribbon of smoke into the twilight sky. Coulter Hayes sat near the hearth, boots steaming and rifle leaning close at hand, though there was no one for miles but the deer and the wolves. The fire popped and hissed, spitting embers as though protesting the weight of so many silent winters. Coulter rubbed a hand over his jaw, feeling the roughness there. He let the beard grow thick these past months, not out of laziness, but because mirrors felt too cruel these days. Once he'd been a man folks tipped their hats to in town, a hunter with a straight back and steady eyes. Now the mirror reflected a creature more kin to the woods than to men. His dog had died 2 winters past, and he hadn't found reason to replace her. Maybe that was why the cabin felt so hollow now. He rose stiffly, joints creaking as much as the old floorboards, and pulled on his coat. Outside, the air bit sharp and metallic. Snow crunched beneath his boots as he crossed to the woodpile, eyes scanning the tree line without thinking. It wasn't the woods that worried him. It was the stories that came riding out of them. The Apache bands driven north by soldiers, the settlers who whispered of raids and missing cattle. He hefted an armful of logs when the sound reached him, soft, muffled by the snow but unmistakable. A cry. Coulter stilled. His pulse thudded in his ears as he set the wood down quietly and reached for his rifle. The cry came again, faint and breathless. A woman's voice. He followed the sound through a thicket, boots snagging on roots hidden beneath the drifts. It was there, in a small clearing, that he saw her. She lay crumpled against a fallen log, her shawl torn and hair hanging loose in wet, black strands. Her bare feet were red with cold, and her hands clutched a leather satchel tight to her chest. Even from a distance, Coulter could see the dark stain of blood seeping to the fabric near her ankle. At the crack of a branch underfoot, her head jerked up, eyes black as Riverstone met his. "Please," she rasped, her voice strained but clear in its desperation. "Please don't leave me here." Coulter tightened his grip on the rifle. Apache. She had to be. Her face bore the fine, strong lines of the people he'd heard so many tales about, half told in fear, half in grudging respect. "Where's your camp?" he asked flatly. "Far." She swallowed hard, wincing as she shifted her weight. "I was gathering roots." Soldiers came. Her English was halting but certain. He didn't ask what had happened next. He could guess. "You're not safe here," he said, scanning the woods. "Your people come looking." "They won't find me," she said softly. "Not before the wolves do." The words pierced him sharper than they should have. He remembered another winter years ago, when he found his wife kneeling in the snow, her hands cupped around the limp body of their only child. The cold hadn't spared them. He took a step closer. The woman's eyes flicked to the rifle and back to his face, but she didn't flinch. "You're not my problem," he said, more to himself than to her. "No." Her voice was steady despite the tremor in her body. "But you could choose to make me yours." Coulter's jaw worked. He thought of the townsfolk, the whispers that would follow if they knew he brought an Apache woman under his roof. Thought of Jed Malone, who'd once shot a man for less. "Get up," he said finally. "I'll help you back to the log. You can wait there till your people come." Her eyes flashed, not anger, not fear, but something deeper. Resignation, maybe, or disappointment. "If I'm gone by morning," she said, "you'll never have to think of me again." He didn't answer, just helped her to her feet, careful not to let her weight rest too heavily on his arm. She was lighter than he expected, bones and sinew wrapped in defiance. When she was seated again on the log, he stepped back, the rifle balanced across his chest. "You'll be fine," he muttered. "I'll be dead." The words clung to him like smoke as he turned and trudged back toward the cabin. That night, the fire seemed colder, the walls tighter. Coulter poured himself a cup of coffee and sat staring into the flames, the woman's face haunting the back of his mind. Outside, the wind howled through the pines, carried with the faintest sound, a long, low cry that might have been a wolf or might have been her. Coulter's hand tightened on the rifle stock resting across his knees. And for the first time in years, he wasn't sure if he'd done the right thing by walking away. The dawn light broke pale and cold across the treetops, laying a thin sheen of ice over the world. Coulter Hayes sat bolt upright in his chair, boots still on from the night before. He hadn't slept, couldn't, not with a storm clawing at the shutters and that sound echoing in his skull. A cry, a voice. He'd tried convincing himself it was nothing but a coyote's yelp caught on the wind, but deep down he knew better. He threw on his coat, snatched the rifle from its peg, and stepped into the bitter air. The snow had deepened overnight, drifts licking high against the cabin's walls. His boots crunched as he trudged through the clearing, breath ghosting in ragged plumes. The woods were quiet, too quiet. No bird song, no scurrying of squirrels, only the hollow hush of winter pressing against his ears. He followed his own tracks from the evening before, the indentations already softened by fresh snow. As he neared the clearing, the stillness broke. A ring of prints marred the white, large and padded, wolves. His gut clenched. The air stank faintly of iron and fur. And then he saw her. The woman lay half buried in the drift where he'd left her, shawl pulled tight but brittle with frost. Her lips were cracked and pale, and her dark hair stuck in stiff strands to her face. One arm wrapped her satchel as though it were a child, the other curled uselessly over her belly. "Hell!" Coulter muttered, kneeling. His hands hovered, unsure where to touch her without causing pain. Her eyelids fluttered. A rasp of air slipped past her lips. "Still here," she whispered, though her voice was thin as paper. "You're lucky," he said gruffly. "Or maybe just stubborn." She let out the ghost of a laugh that turned into a cough. "Easy now." Coulter slung the rifle over his back and slid his arms beneath her. She weighed almost nothing, like lifting a bundle of reeds. "You better not die on me. I'd never hear the end of it." She didn't answer, her head lolling against his chest as he trudged back through the snow. Inside, the cabin's warmth hit her like a wall. Coulter laid her on the cot in the corner, yanked a blanket over her shivering frame, and knelt by the fire to stoke the coals. Flames licked upward, throwing shadows that danced across her face. "Water," she murmured. He filled a tin cup, lifted her head gently, and let her sip. Her lips quivered against the rim, but she drank. "Name?" he asked quietly. "Ahiv." Coulter. Her eyelids drooped. "You left me?" His jaw tightened. "And I came back." She gave the faintest nod. For a long moment, there was only the hiss of fire and the low whistle wind slipping to the cabin seams. Coulter watched her breathe, shallow, uneven. He didn't realize he was holding his own breath until it caught in his throat. By nightfall, she slept deeply, though her brow furrowed in dreams. Coulter sat near the fire, turning her satchel in his hands. Inside were bundles of herbs, beads, and a bone needle, tools of a healer, not a warrior. The next morning, Ahiv stirred. She tried to sit up and grimaced. "Lie still," he said. "That ankle's bad. Wolves nearly got you." "Wolves didn't scare me." Her voice was stronger now, though still quiet. "You did." He didn't know what to say to that, so he busied himself with the kettle. "I'll leave at first light," she said after a pause. "You won't make it on that leg." "Then you can take me." Coulter set the kettle down harder than he meant to. "Don't ask for more than I've given." "I'm asking for nothing," she said evenly. "I'm telling you I'll walk if I must." He rubbed his hands over his face. "You're a damn stubborn woman." Her lips curved faintly. "So I've been told." For 2 days, the snow kept them pinned. Ahiv insisted on helping where she could, grinding cornmeal with slow, deliberate strokes, mending a tear in Coulter's shirt with his coarse thread. When her fingers brushed his knuckles as she passed him the repaired fabric, he startled at the warmth in her touch. "You're not afraid of me?" he asked suddenly. Her dark eyes met his. "Should I be?" "Most would. I've seen worse than a man who walks alone in the woods." He couldn't tell if that stung or soothed. On the 3rd day, he saddled his horse for a trip into Dry Creek. Supplies were low. Before he left, he glanced at Ahiv by the fire, her face calm, her hands weaving beads into a strand of rawhide. "You'll be safe here," he said. She didn't look up. Safe isn't the same as welcome. He paused, then left without another word. The town was restless when he arrived. Men loitered outside the store, voices low and sharp. "Boone," one called as he dismounted. "Heard you got company out there." Coulter kept his face blank. "Apache girl, ain't she?" Another man spat. "They'll cut your throat soon as look at you." "She's not like that." "Ain't no like that." "Boone." "She's trouble. You'll see." Coulter didn't answer, but the weight of their stares followed him into the store. That night, back at the cabin, Ahiv was waiting by the door when he returned. "They know about me," she said softly. "They'll talk. That's all." "You don't believe that." He sighed, resting the rifle by the door. "You're right. I don't." "Then why keep me here?" "Because leaving you out there was worse." The fire crackled, filling the space between their words. Ahiv reached into her satchel and pulled out a small leather pouch. She held it out to him. "For you." "What is it?" "Protection." He hesitated, then took it, fingers brushing hers. And for the first time in years, Calder felt the faint stirrings of something warm, not in his hands, but deep in his chest. Outside, the wind shifted. In the distance came the faint clatter of hooves. The sound of hooves came first, faint but sharp in the cold night air. Coulter Hayes froze where he stood, hand poised over the latch. Outside, the snow seemed to tremble with the weight of riders approaching, their silhouettes just beginning to cut against a tree line under a swollen silver moon. Inside, the cabin was warm, the firelight throwing long fingers across the floorboards. Ahiv sat near the hearth, her shawl drawn tight, eyes on the door though she hadn't yet spoken. She didn't have to. He could feel her breath catch as she listened to the rhythm of those horses. Too steady, too purposeful to be animals straying close. "They're here," she said softly, as though naming it might change the shape of what was coming. Coulter's jaw tightened. "Stay inside. Out of sight." "You know they won't stop at the door," she murmured. "Not men like them." "They'll listen to me." He shouldered the rifle, the leather strap creaking, the weight familiar, yet suddenly heavier than it had ever been. He reached for his coat, feeling her eyes trace every movement as if she were memorizing him in case this was the last time she'd see him stand. "I won't let you fight alone," she said. "Yes, you will." Her lips parted, but he stepped onto the porch before she could argue. The cold struck him like a blade. The riders came into view, 7 of them fanning out in a crescent around the cabin. Their horses snorted clouds of steam. At their center sat Jed Malone, his face twisted with a smirk that never reached his eyes. "Evening, Hayes," Jed called, resting an easy hand on his revolver. "Heard you been keeping company with a wild girl." Coulter planted his boots firm in the snow. "You came all this way for gossip?" "No, I came to clean up the mess you're making." Jed's gaze flicked to the window where faint firelight glimmered. "Her kind don't belong out here. You know that as well as I do. She's not what you think. She's Apache. That's all I need to know." Jed's horse pawed the ground, and the other men shifted uneasily behind him. "Move aside. We'll take care of it." Coulter's hands tightened on the rifle. "You take one step closer, and you'll regret it." A murmuring ripple passed among the riders. Jed's smirk faltered for the first time. "Don't be a fool. You're one man. One man's all it takes if his boots are planted deep enough." The door creaked open behind him. Ahiv stepped onto the porch, her shawl still tight around her, the firelight spilling out behind her like a halo. Her bare feet pressed into the snow. "No," Coulter said without turning, his voice low but taut. "Yes," she replied, steady as the winter wind. One of the younger riders shifted in his saddle, eyes wide. "It's her. I know her." Jed barked, "Shut it, boy." But the youth didn't shut it. 2 winters back near White Mesa, I fell and broke my arm. She found me. She fixed it. She... Enough. Jed's shout cracked the air, but the hesitation had already spread like frost among the men. "She saved me," the boy muttered again. Ahiv raised her chin. "I mean you no harm. I am no thief, no raider. I came here because this man saved my life, and I ask only for peace." Coulter glanced at her then, the faintest flicker of something unspoken passing between them. Jed spat into the snow. "You're both fools. Boone's land or not, You're making a mistake. Then let me live with it, Coulter said. Jed's hand hovered over his revolver. For a moment, time stretched thin and fragile, like ice on a pond. Then his fingers curled away from the gun. Your grave, Jed muttered, wheeling his horse. Let's ride. The others followed, though more than one cast a backward glance before vanishing into the trees. Coulter lowered the rifle, his breath shaking loose from his chest. You shouldn't have come out, he said hoarsely. I wasn't going to let you stand alone. He looked at her for a long, quiet moment, the snow still falling between them like ash. You're going to get me killed, you know that? Then we'll die standing, she said, and for the first time, her lips curved into a faint, unguarded smile. Inside, the fire had burned low. Coulter sat in his chair, staring into the embers while a Hiv stirred a pot over the heat. Her dark hair caught the light, and he couldn't help but watch the quiet grace in her hands as they moved. Your people, they'll want you back, he said at last. They'll come, she agreed. And when they do, she met his gaze, calm and certain. They'll see you save me, and they'll call you what they call a man who saved a woman's life. What's that? Sacred husband. Coulter let out a low breath. And what if I'm not made for that kind of title? Then you'll wear it anyway. The kettle hissed. Outside, the wind picked up again, rattling the shutters like a warning, or maybe a promise. Coulter leaned back, eyes softening as the firelight carved her silhouette in gold. You've already repaid me, Ahiv, more than you know. Her hand stilled over the pot, and she looked at him with a gentleness that felt heavier than any bullet. And in that moment, Coulter knew the depth between them had shifted into something neither of them could walk away from, no matter how far the snow stretched around them.